Do artists really have to starve to be true to their craft? Must the business side of creativity drain all inspiration? No, it does not. 5 minutes on creative entrepreneurship can help you master the business side of creativity, reap greater rewards from your talent, and enjoy your work to the fullest.
I'm so glad trouble don't last always.
Some artists seem to need angst to fuel their inspiration. Consider Jimmy Grashow. He spent over 3 years reproducing Bernini's famous Trevi fountain in cardboard. And when it was ready to be put on display, it was set up outdoors at the Taubman Museum of Art in Roanoke, Virginia, intentionally left exposed to the elements to disintegrate into a mess of pulp. In the documentary The Cardboard Bernini, Jimmy talks about his intention to embrace the futility of time and how he depends on his creative angst to inspire his work. Now granted, this is an extreme example, but I believe that somewhere, deep in the hearts of most creative entrepreneurs, angst is used as fuel for the creative process. But is this the healthiest, most sustainable way to motivate your creative work? I'm Eric Holter, and I've been a serial creative entrepreneur for over 3 decades. After graduating from Rhode Island School of Design in 1991, I could cut and print beautiful wood engravings. But I had no idea how to run a business. They just don't teach enough about business in art school. Medical residents push through extraordinarily long hours to become doctors. Athletes leave it all on the field, pushing themselves to exhaustion to be the best. And artists? Artists labor over their work, reaching, striving, searching for creative solutions. This striving or angst often compels the process. And while there may be some degree of necessity in this artistic striving, there's always a danger of falling down the rabbit hole, losing all sense of time or reasonable limits to our efforts as we strive to satisfy our creative ambitions. And if we allow ourselves to get lost in creative wonderland, the heartless Queen of Hearts, also known as the real world, is going to take off our heads. How can we take control of something so deeply personal, so primal as artistic inspiration, and tame it into something that can be used in a professional context and result in a profitable business? Gaining the upper hand over your angst is going to involve 2 basic disciplines. First is simply self-awareness of how angst may be driving us, and simply resolve to keep it in check. But knowing there's a danger is not the same thing as avoiding it in the first place. And so the other element in controlling your angst is to observe it in one of its other manifestations, the drive for perfection. You may have heard the expression that great is the enemy of good. Well, it's also true that perfect is the mortal enemy of great. I'm not going to tell you that you need to settle for average quality in your work. There's just no way a creative can settle for okay work. You should strive for greatness, but in measure. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're rarely content even with great. We want our work to be perfect. We want to make sure we've explored every option, evaluated every angle, tweaked every element until they resound in perfect harmony. But consider the cost of allowing our angst expressed in perfectionism to be our standard. A true audiophile can hear and appreciate the difference between high-end speakers and a truly elite system. But that final 5% of audio fidelity between great and amazing comes at an extraordinary premium. Closing the gap between very good and perfect, from 95 to 100% quality, is profoundly costly. Imagine if there were a design quality detector that could alert you when you'd arrived at 95% quality. And let's suppose it took you 40 hours to get there. Would you be willing to stop working at 95%? What if getting to 100% would take a disproportionate amount of effort, say 20 or 30 hours more, and only you and perhaps a small number of elite designers would ever perceive and appreciate the difference? When we think about it from a business perspective, of course, we need to stop at 95%. But when creatives enter that zone, striving for perfection, when your mind is full of so many more possibilities, you keep going, trying out just one more idea. How many hours, I wonder, have you spent satisfying the inner perfectionist at the cost of your own profitability and exhaustion. Closing the gap between great work and work that meets our own high standards of perfection is costly. It's never demanded by the client. It's our own striving that drives us there. And it's never really satisfied. So far, in exploring creative motivation, we've learned about the dangers of artistic identity and angst with respect to motivation. But we still have one more factor to consider, and then I'll offer a better ground for motivation. So stick with me, and until next week, don't let the business of creativity overwhelm your creative business.
5 Minutes on Creative Entrepreneurship is a podcast by Eric Holter, mentor to creative entrepreneurs. You can find more content and resources at erichholter.com. His book, Blazing the Freelance Trail, is available on Amazon in print, Kindle, and audio. If this podcast is helpful to you, be sure to share it with your colleagues, and ratings and reviews are always appreciated.
I'm so glad trouble don't last.